everyone. It is an honor to be here. Oh, yeah, let me turn that projector off. Can you hear me in the back? Is it too loud? No. Okay. I'm happy to be here with you. You inspire me. And working with a community that is so often degraded and misunderstood and demoralized. I have a great affinity for them because growing up different, I felt all of those things as well. I was born with spondyloepiphyseal dysplasia, which is my ridiculous tongue twister of a name for dwarfism. It's associated with degenerative arthritis. So right from the start, it was a rare syndrome, and I had some medical issues, so the doctors and I were linked. This was a very traumatic relationship for me. My parents had decided that they were not going to talk about my dwarfism. They thought that that would help me fit in, help me not feel different. I have one other brother with spondyloepiphyseal dysplasia, 4 older brothers and sisters who are all average. But when my brother was born, the doctors told my parents, this was 49 years ago, that he was a mutation. And they said, it won't happen again. And then I came along, proved them dead wrong. They didn't know it was genetically passed on back then. So my parents used to take us every 6 months or so up to Boston to the birth defect center where they were on the cutting edge of genetic research at the time. And these visits were so confusing, so painful. My parents were silent. The world was always pointing and staring and laughing. And then the doctors were so serious and cold and making predictions that a child should not be hearing because we're such sponges. So while listening to all that, I was creating and making a definition of myself in error. This one particular year, we went to a convention instead of a normal checkup. And they flew in doctors from all over to study these rare disorders. So that year, we were treated especially like specimens. I'm going to read you a quick excerpt from my perception of just one part of that day. We're going right in here, the doctor said as his toothy grin went first through the double doors. The sight ahead made me gasp. I was abandoned as he joined the sea of white coats with silver nooses around their necks. Charts and strange pictures hung silent on the walls. Bright lights and metal instruments pinched my eyes. So much noise until they saw me. A hush fell across the room. 4 smiles replaced the clatter. They wanted something. I stood alone in the front of the room as one of them approached. Hello, Julie. I'm Dr. Simon. I recognized his Vulcan eyebrows from the year before, but I said nothing. I didn't want any of them to know how scared I was. Dr. Simon turned away from me and began to address the group. 1 in 100,000 births are affected yearly by spondyloepiphyseal dysplasia, a congenital defect. Here we see the proportionate short-statured SED with short trunk and proportionate limbs. Dr. Simon asked me to turn sideways and raise my arms. Note the curvature of the spine and pelvic abnormalities. He paused for a second and then looked me in the eyes. Would you mind standing up on this table? We just want everyone to be able to see your pretty face. On the inside, I was screaming, no. But yes flew off my tongue. And even though I hated them, I wanted to be good. I was taught to be good, even for the white coats. Someone grabbed me under my armpits and lifted me into the air up on display. Dr. Simon continued, his strange words pressing into my ears as another doctor moved my limbs, turning and twisting them, bending and straightening. His hollow voice magnified my flaws. Clipboards bobbed, face after face examined me, nodding as they scribbled notes and measurements. They looked so intently, but no one saw. The exhibition continued as I drifted away, desperate to drown out the labels that were anchoring inside. Defect, abnormal, deformed, dysplasia. Would you mind bending forward for me, Julie? I obeyed, and he continued. Note the decreased range of motion of the lumbar spine. Decreased range of hip rotation and degenerative changes in hips and misaligned knees. There are regular epiphyses and abnormal growth of the long bone. Out of 5 older siblings, one brother carries the same diagnosis of spondyloepiphyseal dysplasia. The other 4 siblings are normal. Mother reports slight motor delays. Patient walked at 17 months of age. We just want to look at your pretty face. When they were done with me, I was brought back to my parents a lost wallet whose contents had been impersonally scanned. My ID, though, had been left behind. For years, I never even knew it was missing. And those labels, because they came from the gods of medicine, who were never wrong, dressed in white, I thought that was who I was. And that was all who I was. And I was broken. And I needed impossible repairs, and that was a done deal. I went on to work hard in school, hoping that maybe that could make up for some of these horrible flaws that caused such pain in my family, that caused strangers to go after me, that caused utter confusion in my life. I graduated from college. I landed in Boston, of all places. The city that had really unglued me, that used to send chills up my spine when I would just hear the name. And this place that was my nightmare became like a dream. That I had this awakening there to the possibilities, that I was not just these labels. I found a little bookstore, and it was chock full of self-help books. And they all seemed to agree that my joy, my happiness, was not going to be based on my circumstances, my body, my teachers, my parents. It was going to be based on my response to all those. My choice, my attitude. Was I going to be able to find meaning, or was I going to stay a victim? So these books sort of brought possibility I had never dreamed of. And even though I didn't know how to get there, how do I believe in something I don't think I am, they gave me hope. Another thing that happened at that bookstore was I saw they had hand-painted cards. And I had always loved art. And I thought, I could do that. And I went home and I painted and I painted and I painted, because as a girl, painting was something that really fulfilled me. When the other kids were out and they were active and having fun and doing cheerleading, I could spend hours painting. So I went home that night, I got back into something I loved anyway. I brought in several examples to the bookstore. Didn't tell my boss. Brought them on day she wasn't there. Because I thought, well, if anybody laughs at them, if anybody says, who did this, I won't blame them. But fortunately, one of the first customers that morning raved about them. And she actually wanted me to make one card large into a painting for a friend of hers. And this started me on a freelance art career. I didn't know it at the time, that was the beginning. And the books at the same time were saying, follow your bliss. Don't listen to what other people are saying. Listen to what makes you happy. Listen to the gifts that you have, offer those. Stop listening to the negative voices that have been following you all your life. It's not easy, but I realized it's possible. So I was an artist. I made a meager living for 10 years or so. in the interim, I also had my hips replaced and my knees replaced because of the arthritis. And then my shoulder started to go. And it was my right shoulder, and I'm a righty. And I tried to keep painting, and I used ice, medication, and I tried acupuncture and crystals, and I tried everything. And I had to give up my art. And I was crushed. And I wanted to have a big fit. What next? What else do I have to lose? And all my old mantras came rushing back to me. My body is going to ruin everything. I'll never be as good as everyone else. I'll never measure up. See, this is proof. It's what our mind does. We try to prove what we believe, what we were taught as a child, instead of believe that inner wisdom that's saying, none of that was ever true. That's why it hurt. Because your inside knew. No, you're more than that. But in this pity party where I had lost the use of my shoulder, I lost my art, which was the one thing I really felt gave me value. It gave me comfort. I decided I was going to find meaning. There had to be meaning. And my father suggested I try computer graphics with my left hand. Now, computers were new. This was 13 years ago. And before I could start with that, I got hooked on email. And I started to email my friends and family and share with them what really was going on. And these beliefs that I didn't want to believe, but I thought might be true, that life was never going to be better for me. And as I did this and got it out and spoke it instead of hid it, which I'd been doing, trying to bury it, trying to pretend it wasn't there, trying to pretend I was okay. And as I typed and typed and typed and really started to type, and I cried and I grieved and I thought about what had happened and realized I'd been holding all of this and my shoulder had had it. My body had had it. Can't hold all that emotion without it doing something to the inside. So this venting, this therapy, I started to feel better. I started to feel a lot better. And I noticed one day as I was typing that my right hand was trying to get in there. My shoulder was feeling better, which really there was no reason. There was no cartilage in there. There was no synovial fluid. It was bone on bone. The nerves were being pinched, but I wasn't getting these horrible, stabbing pains. And I thought, wow, if this is healing me, maybe it could help others. Maybe this is something I should be sharing. And I realized I was writing a book. And I had no idea then that I would be speaking. I would have died. I probably would have stopped. Because why would I put myself out there to possibly be criticized, to be stared at, to be analyzed, possibly be laughed at? I didn't want that. But slowly, as I got on this path, my fears were falling away too. Testing. We're going in and out. Are they on? Oh, all right. So, where was I? Therapy. Personal therapy. This book led me out into the world in a way I never thought I could handle. Never thought I could feel myself in front of a group or free to be true to my own path, to follow my heart, to stop listening to that negativity. Find the cause? Oh, too close?
It's an experiment. I think they pull it away over now. Sorry, folks.
First I was squeaking a gym and now getting back in me. was my hero, Wayne Dyer, with a bigger message. Because when I realized that my pain could be used for purpose, that just set me on fire. I'm sure many of you also were called to this line of work for that very reason. So out of my darkest time, when everything seemed to fall in on me, and all my old fears about who I was were knocking down my door, out of that came what I really longed for, which was to be safe in this world, to connect with people, to share who I really am, and not be ashamed of it. And we're all human. We've all had our battles, carried our crosses, and in sharing my story, I realized how universal it was. I was not the only one feeling different. I was not the only one feeling marginalized. Everyone experiences that. And that was a big relief, to realize that in our weakness, when we share it, it makes us stronger. So back then I learned an exercise that helped me change my own lenses, shift my perspective, so that I could feel empowered no matter what was happening out in the world. So if you want to take out of your bag the worksheet we have, the second page says, qualities I dislike. And I want you to write down 3 qualities that really get under your skin. 3 qualities that you just can't stand in others. You have to work with them, if you are in family with them, whatever it is. Write down 3 qualities. There should be a pen in your bag too. And while you're writing that, also pay attention to the feelings that bubble up when you think about these people. When you think about having to work with them, or having dinner with them, seeing them on TV. What feelings are triggered in you? You may have faces come up, family members perhaps, co-workers, that might start to give you an idea about why these things so burn. When I first did this exercise, I wrote down people who bully, people who try and intimidate others, and people who feel superior or condescend to others. Kind of my childhood in a nutshell. And I thought our facilitator was going to give us tips on how to deal with these troublemakers. Well, instead, the first thing she said was, these qualities that you so dislike in others, because it echoes a seed, a small bit of that same quality unresolved in your own heart. And I thought, what? I am not a bully. And I certainly don't intimidate anybody. And I don't feel superior. So how could that be? And then I heard her say, these qualities trigger defense in you. So can you tell me what you defend? And I was feeling very defensive, so I started to listen to her a little more. She said these knee-jerk reactions to people we don't like are often because they're displaying something that's in us that we don't want there. about the bullying. A friend of mine who had we had a difficult friendship, but I've been very envious of her. I often felt insecure when I was with her. And I often tried to bully my way with her. And I thought, oh, all right, well, there's a little bit of that. And there were times when strangers were staring at me, and I'd try and give them the evil eye, I'd try and intimidate them. I didn't really feel it. I just knew what it looked like because my dad did. And there were times when that particular friend was gossiping or talking about something that I didn't think I could share. And so I would act above it. I don't care about that. So I realized I was acting superior. I didn't feel superior, but it made me realize that maybe these others are acting too. They don't honestly feel powerful. Bullies, in fact, feel very disempowered. That's why they lash out. And the more I thought about it, the more I realized this was the way to have compassion and to connect with the people I most dislike so that there was not that power struggle. I did not feel disempowered by them because I could understand them. I could see what had started in their heart was from a defense, a protection. And when I felt insecure, when I felt tired, stressed, I would rely on those. I didn't like it about myself at all. Why would I want to do to others what had been done to me? But it makes sense, because we are sponges, and we do that knee-jerk thing. And we use what we know, what we grew up with. And I thought intimidation and bullying, I thought that looked like power. It didn't feel like power, but it looked like it. And most people are acting, they don't truly feel that superiority or that intimidation. It's an act. So we're going to do the second half of the exercise. I want you to write down on the next page qualities you really deeply admire. And some of the emotions that bubble up when you think about being with those people, hanging out with those people. How do they make you feel? So these qualities are probably more easy to see that they're already a part of you. They may need some amperage, they may need support, they may not come out as much as you'd like, but they're there. That's why you recognize them in others. You want to ignite those. And these are the qualities to bring to the table when you have to deal with the troublemaker. Because they need it more than you. Because if they're acting out, they're really crying for help. They're crying for inspiration. And if you can remember, instead of to have that knee-jerk reaction, but to take the responsibility, the ability to respond with your own clarity and bring what's good about you, what's strong about you to the table, I guarantee they won't trigger your buttons as much, and you may very well be able to solve the problem. Because if you point at them protection from their past wounds. And we've all had losses. Everyone knows what that feels like, to protect what we feel is most vulnerable about us. But those vulnerabilities are what will truly connect you with life, with your deepest passion. If we keep that defense inside, our dreams are stuck down there too. My husband's ex-wife was one of these troublemakers in my life. From the first time I heard a conversation, she lived in California, we lived in New Jersey, I thought, oh boy, he's rude, she is full of poor me, she is demanding, and I thought, oh, I'm glad I don't have to deal with her. But then, a few times I had to talk to her on the phone because Bill's wife, Bill's stepdaughter, was coming to visit. And she started insulting me. I didn't even know her. But I couldn't believe it. And I immediately set a judgment and I set the tone from then on, without really knowing it, that I was adding to the problem. One day they were talking, I was pregnant with our first son, and Anne, his ex-wife, said, that woman has no right to pass on her bad genetics. Well, I was shocked that she said it out loud. I knew people probably felt that way. But I started immediately into the defense, well, I've gotten this from being different, this has made me strong. But was I believing it in that moment? No. Then, my stepdaughter was getting married many years later, and we were going to meet her face to face, and I didn't want any confrontation, problem at the wedding. She was unpredictable, and I just didn't know. And I was talking to a friend of mine, and my friend said, listen, you're going to have to find those qualities in her that you share, that you like. I thought, oh, she's right. And when I go to bed at night, I would have these imaginary conversations with Anne. And they'd start out with her apologizing. And then we'd talk about our past, and our traumas and our pain. And I knew she'd had a tough childhood. She'd been terribly abused by both parents, but particularly her father. And my compassion started to rise again for her. And we'd end these conversations in my mind, laughing and hugging, and she'd apologize again. And then the next night I'd do the same thing. Because in the interim, I would start to argue in my head with her. So I had to do it a lot to start to see and feel that connection with her. Who is she deep down? And she'd tell me she was in a lot of pain. And she wanted to see Bill in pain. And me too. Because we were happy and she was not. And again, I started to understand where she was coming from. And I apologized for her, for judging her so harshly. And now that I had kids, I understood why she had been so protective of her daughter. And we'd end the conversation, we'd hug, we'd laugh, and she'd apologize. And I was starting to feel a lot better. And I was starting to feel like, well, no matter what she throws at us, I can stay calm. I can stay balanced. I can respond with love because I know she's just out of sorts. She's insecure. She's in pain. So as we're driving up to the rehearsal hall where we're going to decorate in a Renaissance theme for my stepdaughter, Bill says, oh my gosh, there's Anne. And she's waiting for us. I'm thinking, uh-oh. So I get out of the car and I'm nervous and distracted. And as I'm walking, I don't notice the little curve and I apologize. And the whole picture just suddenly seemed so perfect to me that my quote-unquote enemy would be there to keep me from falling. And when I fall like a tree. My knees and hips don't really bend, so there would have been blood and pain. And that whole trip, she was perfect. She even complimented my husband. He said he couldn't remember the last time that happened. So it was changing because, well, maybe she was having conversations with me, I don't know, but I was changing my mind about her and my heart about her. And somewhere in this mysterious world, that can reach the other person. Somehow. If I asked you, what are the qualities that you most admire in your consumers? It would probably be their courage, their determination, their perseverance, their kindness in the face of unbelievable odds, their joy. When the rest of us would be on our knees facing what they face. They have learned a heart intelligence that the world needs. You know that. But our society has yet to embrace that kind of diversity, that kind of difference, to broaden our view of normal instead of narrow and label everybody. They serve such a need in this world to remind us to slow down, take a deep breath, to not waste this precious life we've been given. With all the abilities that we have, they really keep things in perspective, right? Did I hear an amen, sister? They are amazing teachers. And they're unsung heroes, just as you are. I have one more story about choices of the heart and how we can shift our perception to change our life. This is a Cherokee legend called Two Wolves. And it's a grandmother talking to her granddaughter. And the grandmother says, in every heart, there live two powerful wolves. The first one believes that the ultimate power in the universe is power over others. Dominance through anger, through fear, through hierarchy, through finger pointing, through blame and suspicion, through division. And that wolf believes that we're all out for ourselves, and we're all alone out there. The other wolf believes that the greatest power in the universe is the power to connect through love, through understanding, through that inner peace, through joy and teamwork and community and compassion, tolerance, acceptance. And that wolf believes that we are all sacred, beautiful threads of the greater web, the greater good. And in the end, we're never really alone. And the grandmother says, these two mighty wolves battle every day, every moment, for our attention. And the granddaughter asks, well, which one will win? And the grandmother says, whichever one you feed. Because we always have the choice. Both wolves are out there, and everything in between. But which one do we want to honor in our own life. Which one do we want to be an example of? What do we want to pass on? What kind of world do we want to live in? We have to be that solution. We can't say, well, that isn't working and that over there and I don't like this. Then be that change. Bring in those qualities that you know you admire in others and that they are in you. Dag Hammarskjöld says, become a mirror in which the greatness of life will be reflected. Because we're all mirrors for each other, good or bad. You know, some of my best mirrors were difficult people, but they showed me where I had believed such negativity about myself. I was willing to say it was their fault, instead of saying, why did I believe that in the first place? And I can change that belief. I have power over that. We may not be able to change them, but we can change our response. We can make a new choice, not blame the past. Maybe we need to grieve the past, but not carry it forward and use it as our excuse to not become that beautiful mirror. You have a huge impact and responsibility with these beautiful, sensitive souls. And they feel deeply because of the limits that life has placed on them. I believe their mission is more about the heart. They're not about productivity and independence and intellect. Their brains are wired differently. But they come with these great gifts our world needs. And if you come with your positive approach, they feel that. They feel that as safety and trust in this world that has disregarded them. If you come with your negativity, with a problem with your coworker in front of them, they take that on too. And they believe it's their fault because so much pain was due to their condition. And whether they acknowledge it consciously, their heart knows that. So you hold these beautiful souls, and you are changing them as they are changing you. You're their heroes. So become that mirror. You have so much good to give. Don't get caught in the blame. It goes nowhere. And actually, it's stuck inside you. Let it out so you can really be there for your consumers. Thank you for your inspiring work. Thank you for your dedication. And thank you from the